Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Shadowverse. For a second there, I thought I wasn't going to remember the name of the thing. So after spending maybe a little bit more work than it really was worth it, I got the daily quest done, and in 7 hours and 17 minutes I guess the next daily mission will reset, and at that point I'll get some more temporary gems, I guess. It's proving itself though very hard to really justify spending that extra time doing the daily quests of like wins that can be unranked matches, because I've yet, so far as since I haven't built any decks, I've yet to see really a big difference between playing an unranked match and a ranked match. This was a consistent problem both for Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering 2 in pretty much any collectible card game. There has just been always this consistent lack of difference between people that just want to play for fun, and the implication there being that would be particularly easier to get a victory, versus people who want to play ranked, where people should be paying attention and trying their very best to win. So it would be theoretically more difficult to get a victory. It almost makes the argument that half of the people who play collectible card games are so bad at playing the collectible card games that when they try, they actually do worse than when they don't try. And I might be in that group, frankly. So there's a practice mode, I guess. Yes, but then you can't get the daily quest with the practice mode. So there is that inconsistent issue, certainly. Regardless, we're going through Urias's story here. We have Urias's, then Eris's, then Yuan's story, and then my assumption is that in the next chapter we'll have like 12 chapters that brings all the characters together, and hopefully that's gonna speed up the process somewhat towards the end.
Purgation is the ruler with a will.
It
shall be done.
The onboarding experience here for new players though is very, very long. I don't know how you put it any other way. And I don't know how they really fix that other than to say not even allow new players to do the main story.
So, this is the new world.
Perhaps what you could do...
There seems to be no great difference. But I can sense that there are 5 great warriors.
So he can just magically sense people around.
Like the vampires I knew. You walk in the sunlight and you laugh. One becomes accustomed after a millennium or so. Now, what do you want? I'm here to shackle you. Your power and thirst will unbalance this world. Your ideas and mine are incompatible.
So Yuan's starting the fight here.
You're a threat.
Which is interesting.
Then why did you grant me the power to cross worlds?
Good question.
I thought you needed that power to triumph, to defeat the Keeper. I see. You wish me to be docile whenever I am not fighting the Keeper. That is naive of you indeed. There are 3 problems confronting you. The first is that you rely on my power. The second is that you believe you could control me. The last is that you ever appeared before me. Activate. I have wanted to test your power. This power to command strange sorcery. So,
he keeps saying activate, which makes him sound almost like some kind of magical machine more than a human.
Then first,
but it would be weird if he was a human, if he was a machine, and then the Keeper used his body as her own body, but we've seen that before, or we've seen other machines that look human, at least now. I'm thinking maybe if they had said you could only do chapter 2 once you get all of the heroes up to level 10, which would require you a week's worth of playing in multiplayer or practice unranked. Honestly, it should just push you into doing multiplayer ranked or unranked, and getting each of the heroes up to level 10 before you could do chapter 2. Or perhaps they put the barrier in the gate after chapter 2, that way you get one full story with the prologue, chapter 1 and chapter 2, and then it says you can't have any more story until you play the game a little bit more and break it up. But that's not really the way you would want to treat the player. So I don't, like, honestly, I don't know a way you do this short of you just don't do this. You don't have so much dialogue. You don't have 8 leader paths telling this story. You put this all on the back burner as an idea, and you wait until your collectible card game becomes popular on its own, because I can almost guarantee you this main story did very little to make Shadowverse popular. Even in the Japanese market, I don't think visual novel fans are going to see this visual novel main story and feel like that is good enough to make them want to play the collectible card game. I imagine it was the collectible card game fans that liked Shadowverse first and foremost. So yeah, I would definitely have said, hey, let's just have this general concept, this writing, be worked on for 4 years. And writing a book effectively for 4 years is not an unreasonable thought. And then when the Shadowverse anime that eventually did comes out, here's the story that you tell. And you leave it up until that point in mostly mystery as far as what Urias is like.
Could it be the reason for this land's prosperity? That affluence has made the people soft, so lifeless are their faces.
There is kind of a George Lucas style mentality in this main story.
Didn't I just tell you to stay back? Quit it. Just go. Just get over there, you know.
That's just like terrible writing.
How peculiar. Is this creature alive?
Eek! Oh, you're...
Is that some sort of monster? Or perhaps... At any rate, it seems willing to fight. Out of the way. You are interfering with my battle.
Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you very
Like,
much.
they're making her Canadian all of a sudden. That's just ridiculous.
Compared to the warriors I sensed earlier, this creature is all too weak. But it is, if nothing else, entertaining. I shall take a closer look to see what it is made of.
And see, this would be funny if he found some kind of camaraderie with the magical creatures because they both suck life. Or if it somehow merged with him and gave him the ability to drain life, which he didn't actually have before. Because we really don't know what kind of vampire he really is. Whether he drinks blood or drains lives or does anything. Yeah. There is this like George Lucas mentality where when he went back and continued just expanding the story, basically when his wife and other people were around and capable of telling him no, he made episode 4, 5, and 6, which were interesting worlds, but not worlds obsessed with fleshing out details. But by the time you're in episode 1, 2, and 3, he's got ridiculous amounts of characters. And he's putting in ridiculous amounts of backstory and details, and that's not just in the episode 1, 2, and 3. There's also like tons of books and toys and things like that to just continue to give more and more details of kind of unimportant characters.
He must be one of the warriors that I sensed earlier. Perhaps I
And
should
see,
first
if she's
search
supposed
for
to have a
this
Canadian-like accent, then why does she not have anything like that?
He's gone.
What an eccentric gentleman.
These two don't even look like they're from the same artist. Like, the outfits look about the same, but this feels like something that you would have bought for just a medieval feudal story, and this clearly is more of an anime fantasy story. And it kind of throws the whole like anatomical moe proportions question right out the window if we think about this for a second, because you have what are more normal size eyes and a normal nose and a mouth. Like, this is realistic art style, like arguably for the United States, maybe even a normal waist and hip proportion for a fat person. Normal hands, and then you look at the anime girl, and she's got the giant Mickey Mouse styled anime eyes. She's got the tiny nose. She's got just a single line for lips. Come over here and look at these lips in comparison. Her hands are particularly slender and long fingers. The proportions in general are not the same. Her neck is incredibly thin, where here you have a fairly thick neck. Here you have a fairly thin hip being implied. They call that bon cute bon, although I wouldn't use that phrase to describe an anime girl, but an anime woman. But basically it means large breast, small hip, large breast, small waist, big hips, or big butt, however you want to do it. But yeah, how does this girl in this anime art style, also kind of big ears, where not really any ears here, and also typically longer hair than would be realistic for someone of that age. You could have someone that age grow their hair that long, but almost certainly they wouldn't. But how does she turn into something like that? If this is her mother, how does she age in the next 20 or 30 years so that her eyes get smaller and her nose actually develops and she actually has lips and her fingers are shorter, not super long and slender? It makes no sense at all. And again, I think that really just falls back into the mentality of they probably didn't have enough budget or a strong enough director to take on this idea. In all fairness, yeah, how does an average adult turn into something like this?
To those magical life forms than to any person.
But I would really feel like I would just not have spent the budget on this until I actually had the budget to do this. Had Shadowverse waited until 3.5 years, or 4-year anniversary really is when they waited. Had they waited to do that, then they would have had a much bigger budget and much more enthusiasm to let them accumulate a bigger budget to do an episode. And honestly, they could have easily taken the general events of Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 and put it into a direct-to-video single, like 30-minute OAV, original animation video, or OVA, original video animation. Or you maybe could stretch it out up to a like direct-to-DVD, direct-to-Blu-ray movie too. Just like a 2-hour story. Although I don't think they could have budgeted for like a theatrical release quality movie.
Don't do what? I know get kids sometimes.
And then if you made an OAV and a direct to theater DVD, direct to DVD movie, you could then take that content and put it back into a mobile game, just as like a YouTube video streaming, and then you wouldn't have to potentially have somebody download the text and have all of this just built into the app. You probably would only save maybe 20 or 30 megs, since it's asking directly to if you want to download the voices, and that would take up the bigger amount of space.
I threw that away long ago. Then now is the time to recover it. May our revelry begin.
So yeah, Urias is just getting in fights with people, and that's pretty much all we expected. He did save the 2 females in the previous scene, and that could potentially have given him some character development or growth, but it didn't really seem like it did. It seemed pretty much like Urias didn't care, and there might be some small useful reason to show that, to say, yeah, Urias is just going to be a jerk at all times, and so even if he does have the opportunity to grow as a person, he's going to reject it every single time. The other thing you could have certainly done is his backstory, like most of the main characters' backstory, is fairly shrouded in mystery still. So if it was going to be a case that Alexander quote-unquote sacrificed his daughter to defeat him, perhaps the way she was sacrificed isn't so much as she was sacrificed in some kind of weapon or magical ritual, but instead she was sacrificed as she was given over to him as Urias' daughter, or as Urias' potential wife, and that's what quote-unquote defeated Urias. But then there would have to be a part of Urias' personality that he was hiding, and some kind of pain and sorrow in Urias' heart that he was hiding and trying to cover up with his constant desire to fight. Which I just don't feel that, and I would say the same is kind of true for the like Dragon Ball Z anime too, is that while there was a fairly large amount of horrible things that happened around Goku, he very rarely felt like somebody who was ever affected by any of the horrible things. He just kind of assumed that he would just be able to fight some more no matter what. Even when he died, he just assumed he'd be able to train and fight more, and seemed to enjoy it. Where if Goku was written more as a normal human, he would be upset, he would be using his emotion in every punch and throw. Sometimes they would write it so that he was using emotion in some final attack, but they'd often forget about it.
You are too much like that man, the one who is fearful of me and fearful of himself.
This story also probably has some similar narrative design to the Dragon Ball series, in the fact that it's just stretching itself incredibly thin. And there's really no reason for that at all.
That you would kill me, Urias Formand?
No, not even close.
I really just feel like Cygames, the creator of Shadowverse, just bit off more than they could chew. And I looked at the other games that they have like on the Android Play Store in the United States. The other games they have are just very standard cell phone games, little puzzle things and the like, things that are not big, not ambitious. So I could see that perhaps in their minds that this was going to be their masterpiece, but it seems like they don't have a
Circle as does life. Bite as does the serpent. Ah.
What is this?
This is no good at all. I skipped lunch, and now it's not going to start up.
What? Stop right there!
Upon the orders of Marlowe Median, I stand before you as the scales of balance.
So
What is the meaning of this?
he was about to do some kind of
Entertainment is
spell,
about to be spoiled.
and he couldn't
Sorry about
because
that.
he hadn't
I'm
eaten.
just useless on an empty stomach.
That is enough. Prepare yourself for when we meet again.
And then these two assistants,
Nicola, were you harmed?
are
Nah,
coming to
It's just
stop
been a
him
long time
in
since I've
case.
seen that sort of monster.
May we judge the peace to have been restored and return?
Yeah, that's fine. Say hello to Marlone for me. That
So
guy was insane, though. If I were to try bringing him down, I'd have to activate and push as hard as I could go.
and see, he's using the activate phrase too, and I don't know if that's a localization issue or if that means he does basically the same thing that Yuan does, which then kind of makes a interesting question about, did he need to be in the story at all, or could Yuan just have been in the story this whole time? Or could this actually be Yuan, or a shadow of Yuan? Like, we'd have to get them side by side, but it might be that they are the same person. That would be funny if this was somehow like a time travel story and they were living the experience of Yuan's life before Yuan became Nerva's
What a slovenly man he was.
vessel.
He has potential, however. The feeling of his fists did not lie. I can expect much from the others.
Yeah, I really do think
Yet
that
another incomprehensible life form.
that they just didn't have enough
Are you
self-restraint.
some sort of traveler?
Like,
Traveler. One might say that I am a seeker of sorts.
You oughtn't draw too close to that magical life form. That's the Magus Covenant's gatekeeper.
Magus Covenant?
and so all these random people
You mean to
just
say
keep
you don't know the
pointing
guilds
him
that watch
towards
over this land?
the different
Got the
guilds,
Order of Bladerites, Eskamali, Counter Solari,
which
Nicola
again
Abel,
makes an
then
argument
you
that
got the
maybe
Magus
Nerva is
Covenant
controlling
right here.
these people
Those five
to
guilds
create war.
rule over Isunia.
And those 5 guilds are the kings of this land.
Well, more or less. Every guild's full of experts, but none of them are as weird as the Magus Covenant. That
And
thing over
this
there
guy
is
seems like he's not in the
quiet
Covenant.
now.
None of the other
Get on
citizens
its
seem like they
wrong
are.
side and it'll tear the town to pieces.
Will it now? When I arrived in this world, I sensed 5 warriors. And the number of guilds is 5. This can be no coincidence. In that case, this Magus Covenant is next. I must thank you, human. You have allowed me to find my next opponent.
Hey, you! I just told you that thing was dangerous.
So yeah, in a funny way, the story of Urias just
Whether
not
it can meet
caring
my
and
desire remains
and
to be seen.
just looking for a fight actually kind of would work as a way of just having the story move very fast. It'd be a very boring story, but we're also still having kind of a boring story.
Gatekeeper was my pride and joy.
So,
Surely you jest. It was most insipid.
so yeah,
Rise for
it would speed
What
up
are you
the
doing
whole
here?
process,
Already you know my purpose well.
but then
I
you
have
would
come in
never get
search
any
of the
characterization of the main character.
Hmm.
But
So
we're
you
still
mean
kind of
you'd like to
barely
fight
getting any
with Eleanor
characterization of the main
Gloria?
characters.
It remains to be seen whether this is worthy of being called a fight. I hope it may be.
I see.
I vaguely recall
Well,
at
that's
one
most
point
unfortunate.
they wanted to
Oh?
make
A single
spin-off
glance reveals that
games
you,
based
like
on
Isabel,
Clue
have come from another
that
world.
where each
Your
of
flesh
the
is clearly
playable
not that of a normal
tokens from
person.
Clue would have a
Fascinating.
backstory and kind of a
If
murder
such a
mystery.
thing were
It would be a
possible,
very
I'd like
different
to
kind of game.
investigate you more closely.
And I think
The
they made
overwhelming
maybe
power that was
one
able to
or
topple
two
my
of them,
gatekeeper.
but they certainly didn't make
Tremble-inducing might.
as many as there were
It is
tokens.
fascinating
Uh,
indeed.
So this is your first time seeing a vampire.
And see, I think that
A
might have worked,
vampire. In this world, they only exist in fairy tales.
but you probably would still need to just
This is growing more and more disappointing.
balance your eyes Formond with
But
someone
still,
else.
I'm about to knock you into nothingness.
Like,
You'll
if
be
you
gone
had
without a trace.
your eyes Formond balanced with the Havencraft character Eris, who was trying to be like
What is this?
peaceful,
Magic
then
that
you could
sends
have
me
a
in flutter.
like
This is surely the leader of
an
the Magic's
ebony and
company.
ivory type
I shall fight with her
uh,
next.
partnership.
You've entered
Opposites
my laboratory
attracting.
without permission. There can be no exceptions to the rules. You shall soon become dust, vampire. Return to the land of fairy tales from which
And
you
we
came.
now know that if she turns him to dust, that she would then be upset about it there
I
being
have
dust
had the
on her
good
floor.
fortune to encounter a new opponent. Let us relish the battle.
Yeah. Much like the Esmeralda
You've got no manners at all.
Isabel
trying to pick a
story.
flower with pure strength.
story, though, this is one of those stories where I'm barely paying attention to it because there's things being said, but they're not important things.
How
And it's
boorish
fairly
do you have to
obvious
be to ask a
that they're
flower
not
the
going
secret
to-
of her beauty?
They're
Just
not gonna
take it
say
for what it
anything
is.
or do anything. Like, you can only be dragged around by the nose so often before you want to just stop listening.
If you already know that, then keep your trap shut.
Ironic that she's telling him to shut up when she talks way
They
too
say
much.
You vampires drink blood, but you'll never reach my neck that way. You'd be lucky to ever push me to the ground.
And we've already heard these lines of
What I
dialogues.
feast upon is my own concern. You need only to fall down before me.
You could put each
This is
one of these lines of dialogue
No, Eleanor
to happen
Gloria,
during a
you are
turn,
worthy of being my foe.
and then have kind of like a scripted puzzle card game play while they say these lines of dialogue. And then you could eliminate
shaking.
the majority of the animation, save a ton in budget as far as the background. There's just like a lot of background
No, I
art.
just need to think. Hold on.
Huh?
I'm irate at you for having intruded into my laboratory. But I'm also interested in you since you're a new life form. And I'm now weighing that anger and interest against my risk of dirtying this laboratory. Alright, I've reached a conclusion. I originally became angry at you for entering this laboratory and creating a mess, so to battle and create an even greater mess would make no sense.
What?
See, if she's
Although I
supposed to
said I
be
was interested in
kind of
you,
like this
that
cold
interest is nothing that I need to
Vulcan
prioritize
logic,
now. The reason being
to
that I
use
have
a Star
already
Trek
found
reference.
something equally intriguing. Accordingly, I believe that I should attempt to resolve this
Yeah.
situation.
She kind of feels
Allow me
a
to
lot
propose
like
something
Dr.
specific.
Spock.
This. Your home isn't in the land of fairy tales. It's somewhere outside of this laboratory.
And
Goodbye, vampire.
she's just gonna blow him away.
It's been a long time since I felt tired. No matter how many hundreds of times I increased the gravity on him, he was able to move like it was nothing. I really blew it there. Putting up a proper fight against that thing could result in the other guilds uncovering a weakness of mine. I'd better set up a magical barrier outside the guild's entrance. I'll teach him what some real anti-personnel reflection magic looks like. Alright, I'm going back to Isabel now. As soon as I clean up this mess, that is.
This is an interesting section because all of those things were said with none of the original characters present. So now we're just, as a camera, observing a new character. And it definitely does kind of feel like they wanted to introduce new classes based on the story. Just an increasing number of gameplay classes, which would be impossible to balance, frankly. Even 8 might be a little bit too much.
How can the people of this world have such strength and yet not
But
enjoy battle?
if they wanted to introduce new classes, the one thing they could have done
If that is the
is
custom of this
save
world,
their money and not
Rydo
write the
destroyed.
story, save their time, and
next-
focus more on gameplay balance and card creation.
You are here as well, I see.
You, Urias Formon.
You are strong enough, but it is as if you have been torn apart. Who did this to you?
I guess the question is, will he actually fight
That man.
Erica?
What a
Because
remarkable
Erica
character. His
and
work is
him
evident in your present condition.
are the two that really should be
You going to fight with me?
balanced out and have their own story.
Beast you are, isn't it?
Because
What enjoyment
Erica's
can be found in chasing
was
after injured prey?
officially
I
given
have no interest
orders
in
to
such
take care of
fleeting
him
pursuits.
in the sense of killing him or capturing him.
But still,
And Erica is
you are now
a
able to
character that
control your draconic
doesn't want to
power,
become a
but
killer
yet
and
you
assassin
simply
again,
stifle it.
where
What
Urias
point
would
is there
totally
in
push her
this?
to come all out with her attacks
Telling me to use it?
and
Of course.
attack him,
What point can there
or
be
let him
on
attack
your
other people.
power?
And
I know
Erica
that
would
much.
also
Nothing will come
grow
from
as a
me.
character if she,
That's why I
through following Urias
This is
around,
bad. Unrefined,
actively was
but
trying
there
to
is a
protect
sense of
other
hunger.
people from being
You
hurt
must
by him.
fight once your wounds have healed. Your eyes are
Because
different from before.
even though she
Well,
keeps calling
thanks.
herself the sword and
Do I have
shield
this world
of the
to thank for
princess,
your change?
she does not seem to
Maybe I
care to
changed,
do
or maybe
anything to
something
protect
changed
any
me.
other people.
I don't know yet.
That is well enough. First the woman who commands magic, and then you.
You could
Have each
easily
had some
merge
amusing
Dragspear and Erica as characters.
Woman who commands magic. You mean Isabel? Where is she now?
I saw her at the Magus Covenant. She was together with a pleasant young woman. Rowan Dragspear, you must prepare yourself. Your spear play, your draconic power, and above all else, your thirst for victory. I believe that is what they call growth. It is a stranger to me now. After the passage of a millennium and some years, I am complete. I have no need for growth, and there is no room for
This is like him directly talking to the
Humans are
audience.
incomplete, and it is their incompleteness that drives me on. Very well. I shall seek the next opponent.
So he's just talking directly to the audience, and he just literally said the thing that I was afraid they were going to do is that he will just never grow as a character. So if he's not going to grow as a character, then he isn't a lump of clay that the narrators and the storytellers can mold. Therefore, they should use him as a tool, and they should just kill him off. He should just die tragically fighting Nerva, and then, again, his magical vampire power should transfer over to someone else, and then we should have like a new vampire character appear in the story. You could easily give his vampire over to Nicola. You could easily give it over to the head of the Magus Guild. You could give it over to one of the existing leaders and merge it down that way. Or you could just introduce a new character completely. I suppose it is also worth mentioning that part of the reason why these characters don't seem to fit compared to the female character leaders is, again, the lack of that moe anime style. He doesn't have the big eyes. He does have a fully detailed nose and mouth, thick neck, hugely thick chest, which is not anatomically correct at all. But you definitely are seeing that it is not a typical anime character, unless you're talking something closer to like a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure type animation, which that style of animation is kind of unique upon itself, and it's probably not the best anime for me to reference to compare to that art style, but it's about the closest one. I could say Baki the Grappler might be a good comparison too, but I could just as easily be wrong about that one too. Typically in anime, male protagonists are relatively wimpy looking and normal looking, kind of wimpy looking characters.
Acceptable in its own way. From here, one can view the entire town. This reminds me of those days when my life was bound by mortal law. When I would gaze down from that hill.
This is a close enough of an animation approximation to a like vampire type castle type town, so it wouldn't be surprising if your eyes did try to take over this whole land.
Surely you are not attempting to speak to me.
And
well, I mean,
that would be interesting, I guess, if this is where the war actually goes, is that everybody is at war with Urias, and then Urias wins and takes over the entire town.
I wondered what might be wrong.
Although I don't know what he would see, what he'd benefit from becoming the leader, other than to, I imagine he'd force people into training 24/7 to become fight enough to beat him. And
upon the orders of Marlowe Median, I stand before you as the scales of balance.
that would be kind of a weird society where it's just like whoever defeats the vampire becomes the new leader, or gets rewarded in some other way.
Could he be with them?
It would be easier for him instead of him looking for
I too belong to one of the guilds.
looking for opponents.
My name is Marlowe Median. I am the Marshal of Eskamali. Pleased to make your acquaintance.
You are the Marshal?
Yes, the Marshal of Eskamali and none other.
There's a problem with calling them marshals because one assumes you could have great marshals, grand marshals, generals.
This man is as soft as the very town itself.
Yeah.
It seems that the 5 warriors I sent
Generals, I believe, in the military order would be above marshals, like 1-star generals to 5-star generals type
Nicola Adele,
setup.
Eleanor Gloria. I am searching for others who can equal them.
I see. And just what do you plan to do when you find them?
That does not concern you.
I'd like to see this guy fight.
No, I believe it very much concerns me.
And it'd be interesting.
Answer, I may have a word or two to say.
It'd be interesting if it turns out that this guy is actually stronger than all of the other characters, and he creates the big boom sound.
Marlowe Median. You must battle me.
Though I would prefer
Median
to
is a
decline
weird
your
last
offer,
name.
I'm afraid that I may not be able to.
This world has already betrayed me twice. I pray that this time my expectations will be met.
It'd be funny if, like, the Eskamali are balancing all the magical forces from the other guilds in such a way that they are taking a cut of everybody else's magic and limiting everyone else's magic.
How incredible! This power of yours would be enough to raise the town.
You need not worry. I take no pleasure in tormenting the weak.
Asunia might be large, but there aren't many fierce enough to contend with you.
Yeah,
I have already met
that sentence
and a
pretty
third
much
is standing before me at this very
explains
moment.
that I think Arise Formond would constantly, given the option, go to new places until he can find somebody that is just going to constantly be his equal.
Will you carry this dance through to the very end?
A part of me would certainly like to oblige, but
Oh?
if you don't object, I would like to ask your name.
Urias Formond.
And I don't know why they're particularly using last names at all. It would probably be easier just to have everybody have a first name.
It's that if you were from this world, you would
Or at
not
least-
think of challenging Nicola Adele, Eleanor Gloria, or me, myself.
Like, yeah, you can give them last names in their, like, character sheet, surely, but there's no reason to have them say it out loud.
And what would it mean to understand this land?
This place, Asunia, is governed by a council of 5 guilds. The relationship of those 5 guilds is complicated.
And it seems
though,
like the
and all
council
sorts
of 5 guilds
interests
never
are
get together
involved.
and actually have
One
meetings
faux
or
pas is enough to set off
make a
conflicts. We
group
therefore attempt to strike a delicate balance,
resolutions.
and we've been successful for decades.
And what of it? That is no reason for me to refrain from battle.
That may be how you see things, but it's a very large reason for me. The balance we have is complicated. What do you think would happen if I were to be injured while battling against you? A hostile guild would jump at that opportunity, and once that happened, the other guilds wouldn't stay still. That is to say, the balance would fall to pieces.
So this really is
All
just
will
like
fall to pieces in the end. Am I
a
correct?
great argument
That may
against,
be true in a sense,
like,
but we want
having
to ensure
multiple
peace
people
by maintaining
working
this balance.
together
That's why I can't fight
only
with
for their
you.
own goals,
Well, that's ultimately
compared
nothing
to
more than my
having
opinion, though.
a central
I doubt
government
Nicola is thinking
under
that far ahead.
a central authority.
Your concerns do not matter to me.
That's why almost
Fight,
all
Marlo
societies
Median.
develop some form of
That would be
governance,
unacceptable.
whether it's a tribe known to showing a chieftain or making a chieftain, or
This overwhelming
the
magical
UK
force
having
is
a
somehow
monarchy,
different from
or
that of Eleanor Gloria.
or the United States having
I
a
cannot
republic.
comprehend. How can you have such
and
might
elected
and yet
officials.
refrain from battle?
And here we have another
Because
special
every time I battle,
image,
it shortens my life. And besides, now isn't the time for that, Urias.
but when you get to special image, his lips aren't moving.
But if you remain in this land, your wishes are sure to come true before long. There might be no gods here, but I pray you
And they
find
keep
what you
saying
seek.
that.
Now please, take your leave.
And this guy, I think, in
unexpected.
particular, says that.
If only for a second you were able to overwhelm me. It seems that I must remember your name.
Haha, I will consider it an
And see, he just smiled and closed his
And I
eyes
shall
in
hope
that
your
case,
words are more
so
than
that they were
idle
willing to
talk.
animate that
Farewell.
change of an image, but that was it. No lip flaps.
This world has seemed soft to me. But perhaps there is revelry to be had here
And-
after all.
Clearly, the lip flaps are not really animating much at all. They're just moving the mouth open and closed, open and closed. The jaw's not really moving. And then you have the occasional blink, which I don't think is really animating an eyelid or anything. It's just probably flashing some white or flashing some darkness for one frame. That was kind of a perfect example of the problem with the way this story has to tell itself, because it has to integrate with the card game. Because that felt like if that was just a crossover anime, you would have seen a ton of animation. They would have spent a third of their budget on that fight scene. You would have seen them moving like really fast and doing all kinds of cool moves and really pumping up the action. Well, but in this format, it's just talk, and maybe you get a small animation that shows them kind of casting one spell. So it's just not well suited. It's not a well suited story for the game that you're trying to show and make appealing.
Nicola Adele, Eleanor Gloria, and Marlone Median. Any of them would make a worthy opponent. I look forward to meeting the remaining two.
I definitely wouldn't say that anybody in the Western world that was looking at this would be more interested in Shadowverse because of the story. Maybe Chinese or Korean people who speak English as a secondary language. Perhaps they are getting a benefit from the English version here. And maybe they have enough of a fandom of visual novels that it makes sense. But
Hey, it's that guy again! Thanks for back then.
Back then? What are you talking about?
so all the townsfolk seem to love him.
You don't say. You're one tough cookie, that's for sure.
Yup, he sure is. He just went bam, and then pow, and then splush, and then they went away.
This is oddly the best description so far of the fights.
What to do?
So he's gonna apparently become the.
Very unlike you to play around with other people.
He's gonna potentially become the hero of the city by freeing the city from control of the guilds.
This is one of my former acquaintances. Would you mind leaving the two of us alone for a bit?
Oh, is that so? We'll get out of here before we get in your way. Come on, kiddo, let's go.
Oh, but I want to talk to him more.
Leave him alone. And whose kid are you anyway?
I don't know.
You don't know? What is that supposed to mean?
See, that would be funny if she turned out to be Nerva.
Kind, are they not?
I believe you mean to say food. And if I were to correct you further, I would say that my body does not much long for blood.
Why? Do vampires not drink the blood of humans to live?
There were once such days, but as time goes on, it becomes less necessary. Now a drink once every few decades will suffice.
So yeah,
That
he's
is why I'm not desperate for blood.
he's not really even much of a vampire.
I only sink my fangs into the neck of those I have deemed worthy. Your eyes are like those of that man, Ewan. Eyes that attempt to assess me.
I have heard Marlone speak of you. What is it that you wish for?
You need not worry, for I have no intention of consuming that sort.
Why is that?
It would be a waste. Is that not so? Erica, that was her name, yes? While watching Erica, I came to notice the possibilities of humans, their thirst for victory, and how limitlessly powerful
Erica
they become.
apparently convinced him
Given enough time,
to let the humans
timeless
live.
humans can eventually become worthy foes.
Like, let them live so they become stronger, so I can fight them.
Perhaps it would be hasty to slaughter them before they grow strong. Is this not so?
To you, this is all nothing more than amusement, isn't it?
Is that unacceptable? Or do your values demand that you pity me?
No, but when you seek blood, not as amusement but in earnest, I do not know.
You wouldn't know, would you? The battle with Balthazar may have been a battle to the death, but never was I driven by blood. Never did I wish to consume him. If
Which is
someone
funny, I
were
thought he
appear
would
who
want
could
to.
awaken my bloodlust, I myself do not know what would happen.
That's funny. I would have thought that he would have considered Balthazar worthy to drink from. But apparently not.
This is quite the commotion.
In a funny way, Urias screwed himself over by killing the other vampires.
That's the work of Counter Solari.
They should have
Getting out of control
instead.
lately.
He should have kept the vampires alive so that he could fight them longer. But I guess all the other vampires were really weak
What is
compared to him.
happening?
Oh, my apologies. I was in a rush.
Wait!
No. I haven't apologized adequately now, have I? Please accept my humble apologies.
So it would be funny if she turns out to be a fairly good fighter.
Shall I test?
I don't even know if she can even fight though. She can't unsheath the sword. So she's just gonna fight with her.
Understand that I've made you cross, but
She's gonna fight with like her gloves and claws.
Your name? Where are you from?
And her outfit does have that Erica art style where the breasts are just over emphasized with fluffiness at the top and fluffiness at the bottom.
Challenge you.
Are you sure we can't talk this over?
If fist and blade cross, what need is there for prattle?
We really are going to battle, aren't we? You see, I'm not strong at all. I hope you find it within yourself to take it easy on me.
See, she can't unsheath the sword, so she's gonna fight him with a sheathed sword? How's that gonna work? If I couldn't unsheath the sword, I would carry another sword. Or some other weapon.
Why do you not draw your blade?
This is rather embarrassing, but it's less that I don't draw it and more that I can't draw it.
What? How risible.
I don't know what the word risible means.
Blade has been passed down through generation after generation of blade-right marshals. But to draw it from its sheath, a considerable amount of magic is required. Unfortunately, I'm not quite up to the task.
Then where is this marshal of yours?
The marshal is currently recovering, so I, the Order's under marshal, am temporarily acting as marshal.
I beg your pardon? Is there no one in the Order of Blade Rights more skilled than you?
No, it's not like that at all. Cetus is far stronger than I am.
I see.
And then they're bringing back in Cetus after not mentioning or showing him
Are you not?
for...
I shall take my leave. I am sorry to have bothered you.
He might have been as strong as Nicola Adele, perhaps stronger. That was very unexpected. Oh no, I have to hurry.
I wonder if she's faking the inability to draw the sword. Or when she draws the sword, that's how she magically controls the other blade rights, and maybe she is causing them to hunt down and kill the Counter Solari without them even knowing. It would make a lot more sense if only one character of the blade rights was actually evil instead of the idea that all of them are evil and like two-faced about their their actions.
Counter Solari are out of control. Even the Blade Rights seem furious about this. What is Eskamali
It'll be
even
interesting
doing? This is just the time when we need them the most.
to find how's he gonna find the Counter Solari.
It'll all turn out okay. They're reliable people.
Now we're just getting random voices with no
This commotion,
animations.
the unease of the people given shape. This seems to be another face of this soft world. Perhaps this is how I should view it.
Hey, it's you!
We meet again.
Yeah! What are you doing now? Me? I'm lost!
It does kind of seem like she just shows up to point him.
With Cetus of the Order of Blades Rights.
Yeah, I know him. He looks really scary.
Oh, this Cetus must be mighty.
Yeah, but he's always getting pushed around by Eleanor.
What?
I've been looking for you all over. Get yourself home this instant.
She found me! Anyway, thanks for helping me out!
Enough. Stop right there.
So Cetus is even weaker than Eleanor. In that case, well, enough. If I trace his path, I am sure to find him.
So now he's looking for Cetus. And he's gonna bump into the other guy instead. Leod Black.
What sort of opponent shall the next one be? Perhaps he will be worthy of becoming my foe.
Yeah, it seems like he's gonna pretty much skip over Cetus and just run into Leod Black. It's weird that some of these stories just finish and there's like no actual battle in them. But I can't say I really hate that. Honestly, since we're just skipping over the battles anyways, they might as well not exist. Unless there's a good storyline reason for them to exist.
Such speed! To think that even I cannot
And
strike
again,
him.
I think I would just be more happy if we were just watching short anthology style stories that
This is foolish.
were focused around characters that show up in the cards. He does show up as a card character, but he doesn't need to be in an entire chapter or two.
You know the body's vulnerabilities, but still, murderers' techniques cannot kill me.
What do you want to gain from attacking guild
And
marshals?
again, we have another terrible voice.
And what do you hope to gain?
Like, if you were gonna have the English voice actors have an accent, it should have been one accent for the whole land. And honestly, it shouldn't be an accent at all, because that's just going to be hard for some people to listen to.
I have not the slightest intention of exchanging words with you. Show me your power.
And see, they're jumping around and teleporting and hitting each other to represent the beginning of a fight.
This is idle play.
Perhaps for you it is.
You're an agent who wants nothing
And
more
we've
than
got,
idle play.
then we've just got music playing in the background, which it would be worse if it wasn't all in silence, but the music's only at best doing its job. It can't really improve the voice acting or the story writing. I would say the music is probably doing its job. It sets a tone, sets a mood, but often it fades out and then you're into the next song or the next background thing. I'd say the background music is probably a little too loud too, in this scene particularly.
That is your weapon of choice, is it not? Ah, There is no revelry to be found here.
And so he uses these double blades, but he has the other sword.
Yes. Show me the whole of your might, man of black garments.
No. This isn't the place for me to swing this blade. You're not who it's meant for.
Are you suggesting that I am not worthy?
For more than a decade now, this blade's had its mark. And that's not you. It's for the one who...
And then we get another sound effect.
Soon, very soon it'll begin. You'd better hope you're not burned to nothing by any of the sparks.
So we still don't know who is causing these explosions.
I had prevented him from fleeing. Then... but well enough. The more pressing issue is...
But if you remain in this land, your wishes are sure to come true before long.
So it seems like Marlon may have caused the explosion.
I see. That must be the sign of battle. Many powerful warriors walk this land. For one or two battles to occur is only natural.
So, did the counter Solari start fighting with the Eskamali? Because we haven't seen any reason why that would happen.
Nicola Adele, Eleanor Gloria, Marlon Median, this man, and the fifth, still unseen warrior. This shall be the greatest of wars. May it be one to light the fires of my body.
I guess it does imply that maybe the Marshal might be Nerva. If the Marshal is Nerva, that would explain why we haven't really seen her directly act. But they've always described the Marshal as a male character, where I would generally have assumed that Nerva would be in a female vessel.
Cannot be wiped away. And the present is
Since
made of
we saw that with
crossing
Larissa and Nexus.
Though their flesh may be near, their hearts are distant. The sun
And once again we just get this
simply vie for the same throne.
the same time.
Fate is like the water that flows. Human wills are like tree leaves
So
at the mercy of the
what you
wind,
could have done
fluttering between hope
is
and
had
despair.
on the map little dotted lines, and each of the dotted lines had splitting paths that split in different ways and then merged back together at the very end. And
flame, smoke and rubble, life upon life.
that would
What do the guided ones
let
see
you
beyond
potentially
heartless
fill
war?
out the map as you play, or switch between characters' perspective as you play. Make it kind of like a tabletop board game experience. Because that's really what is happening here, is you're having a visual novel, not unlike the story flow feature in the visual novel I played, 999, where you start at the beginning and then you have branching paths, and if you go on one path you see one story, and if you choose to go on another path you see a different story. You may not even need a main character to follow those paths, and then eventually you fill out the whole map and seeing that you've seen everything there is to see and getting the whole story, and then eventually those branching paths either dead end or merge back together, which it really wouldn't hurt to say that they do all probably merge back together more than they would dead end. Well, next time we'll do Eris' story, and then Yuan's story, and then the conclusion section, which will hopefully take just about an hour. And then it's the big question time. Do we want to do 4 leaders for Gears Rebellion, and then Gears Uprising, and then 4 leaders for Seed of Conflict, and Seeds of Conflict Harrowing, and then Invasion of the World Reaver? with also potentially the chance that as soon as I do Chapter 9, Chapter 10 will unlock. Either that or this ad is kind of still going on. This could very well be an ad that's been around for 6 months or even a year, though, for all we know. So it might also be the case that nothing I can do really is going to unlock Chapter 10 at the moment. And we still have a few cards to buy. And we still have some daily quests I need to get done. I guess at a certain point I need to line up all the daily quests so that I can do them all fairly quickly at the same time, and then reset the timers at the same time. Because it doesn't really benefit, I think, any player really to have a daily quest appear every 6 or 7 hours, because it's not realistic once I get a handle of playing this game that I would want to play it every 6 or 7 hours. I don't even want to play collectible card games every day, even though so many of them do have daily quests. I want to play them on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday when I'm streaming and be able to complete all the stacked daily quests from those 2 or 3 days and get everything done and then not have to worry about it, so that I then could record other footage playing other games. Here we have a Marionette Expert. Last words, put a puppet in your hand. There definitely is a puppet deck here. And is there anything to take from this? Are these characters we recognize? No. Is this a character that we recognize? No. Puppets look like this. And they have a 0 cost and are 1/1s unless you evolve them, but then they're destroyed at the end of your turn. And you can do some things to avoid them being destroyed, but they're not really worth it to do that. Next we have Dragon Spawning. Summon 2 Dragon Nest. If you have 10 play point orbs, summon 5 instead. That might work in a Dragoncraft deck a little bit better. In a real way, I still am so low in cards. Making a specific deck with a strategy that is for a specific class still seems unattainable. It definitely feels more like I can take a bunch of neutral cards and a few of that specific class's cards and merge them together and make something that is possibly only slightly better than the default and the automatically created decks. And I may be totally wrong about the value of the automatic created decks. If anything, I probably should just delete all the automatic created decks and automatically create them again after I'm done with the main story. We could, I suppose, also run into a problem where maybe they'll start giving vials back or card packs back as rewards after Chapter 2. And then I would have a reason to go back and play them a little bit faster and that would just add more time to what is already an extremely long procedure. Here we have Sweet Spell Sorcerer. Whenever you play a spell, summon a Happy Pig. We evolve it to evolve all Happy Pig. Whenever you play a spell, summon a Happy Pig. There are several cards that have kind of this sweet concept in them, as in candy and cakes and things. So here's a Happy Pig. Last words, restore 1 defense to your leader, or evolve it to restore 3 defense to your leader. That's a pretty good card. We got another Savoring Slash. Deal 3 damage to an enemy follower, burial right, draw a card. We got another Wavecrest Angler. Randomly put a copy of a card discarded by an effect this turn into your hand. I don't have enough cards that actually cause you to discard cards. Feels like there should be a leader ability that lets you discard cards, but there isn't. Here we have Mind Splitter. This is interesting because it has kind of like this backing to it that I wouldn't expect a card to have. By the way, I did actually have seen some cards that do kind of act as envelopes, in the sense that the instructions are particularly inside the card, in a second card inside an envelope of a card. So I do think there is a way you could professionally print the Shadowverse cards to look pretty much like this, and have that just work the way it is. Honestly, at this point, technology is probably good enough that you could have an augmented reality device, know the general outline of a card in a cell phone app, look at the name, which would always be in the same place, and then just do a quick lookup just by the text of the name. So you wouldn't have to do anything fancy like a QR code or any secret other kind of code embedded in the imagery. It could just be all art with the basic attack and cost and all that. You could even get rid of the cost, attack, and all of that if you really wanted to. But then, for the sake of fairness, you really would have to have the whole gameplay be played with an augmented reality app. But then that also would let you print cards and nerf cards and change what the cards say very nicely without having the text on the card be conflicting with what a nerf or a change to a card says. See, we got Mind Splinter, and we cover X play points. X equals the number of allied followers in play. Remember, you can only have 5, so that's 5 play points. At the end of your turn, if you have at least 1 play point, draw a card. Then if you have at least 3, subtract 2 from its cost. If you evolve it, it's the same. Next, we have another copy of Selfless Noble. Discard a card, gain plus X equals the original cost of a discard card. I'm still finding that trying to play 9 cost cards or 8 cost cards are fairly pointless in Shadowverse, because you can have maybe 1 or 2 of them and maybe some cheaper cards that will synergize so you get those 1 or 2 cards, but you can't really have 5 or 6 of those really expensive cards in your deck, because you'll just lose the game before then. Often you'll find that there are decent cards that have like an accelerate effect that costs by default 8 to summon the creature, but only costs 2 to do some other kind of spell. And very often I will use the accelerate effect instead of waiting. We got an Empress of Serenity, I believe another one. Fanfare, summon a Shield Guardian, enhance 5, summon 3, enhance 10, give +3 to all Shield Guardians. And enhance, when it says enhance and then a number, that is the actual cost. It's not an additional cost, so it's not 13 in total, which I imagine that could be confusing if people thought that. So is there anything else to say? No, not really. Okay, well, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and get me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.